since the beginning of the course, you have been learning the fundamentals of positive discipline approach, but you have also learned some practical strategies. And those practical strategies were more present here in this module 4, and which is called behavior management strategies. We covered several behavior management strategies last week, and we are going to see some more today. Okay, they're very practical. They're like things you can get the steps and try with your group. And intention is that next week, which will be our last meeting, we are going to have a sharing session. So you are going to share your classroom experience with each other. You can just open your camera and share. You can prepare some materials. If you have resources, if you have pictures, whatever you have, the materials that you have with you, um, you can try. I know you were in here last week, G, but the lesson was recorded. The materials are in Google Classroom, and so is the class audio. So you can try to catch up by looking at the slides and listening to the class audio. And if you have any kind of questions, you can reach me through email or in Google Classroom, and I can help you out, because the intention now at the end of the course is that you choose among those practical strategies. Oh, yes, yeah. Next week is going to be our big closure, our sharing session. And the intention is that among those practical strategies that we've been learning, and they all belong to the positive discipline approach, you try out one or two with your group in your teaching context, and you share the results with us next week. Okay? I gave Talita some tips last week about how to apply those strategies. Okay? So, the most important thing for you when you look through the materials of Module 4 and read about the practical strategies, about the tools, the most important thing is for you to keep it simple, keep it manageable, and keep it consistent. So you're gonna see several strategies. You might love all of them. You might feel compelled to try all of them together at the same time. But remember, if you are in Brazil, you are teaching remotely. We are having a very rough time here in Brazil, especially in São Paulo. So it is a time of crisis, and it is important that as you are implementing something new, that you keep it simple, manageable, but consistent. So when you look through the strategies, G, from last class, and also when we explore the new strategies in today's class, and you pick your favorite, the one you really want to try out with your group, and when it's time to get there and do it with your children, with your pupils, remember to keep it simple, manageable, and consistent. And then you are going to be able to implement first one positive discipline approach, one strategy, and as time goes by, you will be more able to start, combining more than one strategy until you have a positive discipline ruled classroom. And even after the course ends, you are going to have my assistance for whatever you need. You can always reach out. We will keep contact. So whenever you are trying out some positive discipline approach in your classroom, or you have a behavior issue that you really don't know who to look for, you can always count on me. You can write me, and we can keep sharing knowledge even though the course ends. So the course ending does not mean that your interaction with me ends. And most importantly, it does not mean that you should stop thinking about the positive discipline approach. Actually, it's a time for you to feel more confident about pursuing the positive discipline approach inside your own classroom, inside your lessons. Okay? And any questions about what you have to bring next week about the sharing session? Any questions? No? Okay. And during the week, every day, 24/7, you can always count on me. If you have any kind of difficulty, any kind of question, you can always count on me. Rodolfo, would you like to open your mic and say something to the girls? I'm sorry, I'm just speaking here nonstop. Sorry. Olha, essencial. All right, and also, girls, remember to catch up with the classwork in Google Classroom, okay? Because the doing the classwork is part of your course, the course hours. So it's part of the course to catch up with the classwork. I saw Talita was like, I got lots of emails from Talita. I think it was Friday or during the weekend. Like, I'd say, oh my God, she's going through everything right away. But that's really nice, Talita, because when you go through the classwork and you see the assignments, you have articles, you have videos, you have interviews, and this is the moment where questions might rise, where you will feel like you need assistance on something, you feel like something is not clear for you. And as the course, the course end is approaching, you should use this time really well to clarify any kind of questions that you might have. So go through the classwork and hand in your assignments because it's a part of the course study hours, but also take this moment to check if there is anything that wasn't clear, something that you didn't understand quite well, even if it's a concept from the beginning of the course. But do not leave the course with questions unanswered. Okay, girls? And anything else, Rodolfo? Anything else, girls? Can we start today's lesson? Yes? Okay. So, I always like to start with our timeline. We started in Module 1. When brains meet inside a classroom, we learn how our brains feel the feelings, how our brains organize the ideas, organize bonding, relationships, and also how we interact, how we biologically interact with one another. Then on Module 2, we learned the theory of what social and emotional learning is. We had to align some concepts of what it is and what's not. Then we had our very nice lesson. This is one of my favorite ones. How to balance the curriculum and the social and emotional learning. Again, I think G wasn't in this lesson, but again, G, it is recorded. It's in Google Classroom. Okay, and in this lesson, basically, we learned how to plan and our lessons having the social and emotional skills with our curriculum within what we already do. And basically, we understood that we do not have to delete anything from our plannings. We just need to be more flexible and more open minded of how we are going to address a given content, and considering that we are not only aiming for language development, we are also aiming for social and emotional development. Again, this lesson is recorded. Okay? And today is the second lesson of the behavior management strategies. Again, all very practical, and from those ones, you can pick one to try out as an experiment with your class. And next week, building a real life social and emotional learning experience. Next week will be your turn to speak. I'll be the listener and I'm going to learn from your experiences and from your teaching contexts as well. And again, if you are teaching remotely and you need any help thinking about ways of adapting the social and emotional activities, the positive discipline approach to the remote environment, write me in Google Classroom. I can provide you some examples because I'm teaching remotely as well for over a year now, and I've been doing that. So it's something new for everyone, but I would be very glad to help you with that if that's your case, if you're teaching remotely. And let's just recall the positive discipline fundamentals. Okay, so we talked about the sense of belongingness and contribution. This is a very important concept when we're talking about positive discipline because the psychiatrist Dr. Alfred Adler, who developed the whole approach, he identified that the whole purpose of a person in society, according to his theory, is to consolidate a sense of belongingness and contribution. Okay, we also discussed the balance, firmness, and kindness, how only firmness cannot be beneficial, and only kindness cannot be very beneficial for lifelong social and emotional skills. But the balance of firmness and kindness generates respect, generates accountability, and that's what we are looking for in our practices as teachers. So we foster those lifelong skills, not only skills that kids will do well because they are inside our classrooms, and then when they have a new teacher next year, they are going to change their behavior, but something they will take with themselves. Self regulation, we talked about inner motivation and self regulation. We also learned that there's a mistaken goal behind all kind of behavior. This was identified by psychiatrist Dr. Rudolf Dreikers, and he sorted human behavior in four categories: undue attention, misguided power, revenge, and assumed inadequacy. And when asked why he chose those four, he said that he wasn't labeling children into four categories, but he wrote four different maps so we could find children on those maps. And it's also in Google Classroom a chart that you can print. So after the lesson, after I explained you the theory behind those four types of behavior and how to deal with all of them, there is a chart that you can print and leave at your desk in the classroom so you can consistently look at it and try to read through your kids' behaviors. Try to break the behavior code and break the cycle. That's what we're talking about in module 3. And last, we learned how to balance the social and emotional learning and the curriculum. We start with small steps, and always we keep it simple, manageable, and consistent. All right, so I've talked about it already at the beginning. Next week is our big sharing session, and jot down kids' opinions. If they say something interesting, write down what they are saying, bring their sayings, bring your own impressions, the kids' impressions, and let's have a very rich discussion next week, okay? So we're going to start today's lesson with a video about solving problems, okay? It is a concept we've already shared, that we've already talked about, but I want you to watch the video and then you are going to try to give me some examples of how you would work this through with your own students, okay? It's kind of an old video, but very interesting.
Instead of using punishment when children misbehave, parents need to regard it as a teachable moment where both parent and child can explore what can be done. you're trying to do is to respond effectively as opposed to having a knee jerk reaction. So, the first thing to do, if necessary, take immediate action to prevent harm. So, you might be separating fighting children or removing the crayons that are being applied to the wall or the scissors that are being employed on the school uniform. Then it'll be really essential to take time out to calm down, especially if your buttons are really being pushed. If we try to deal with the behaviour when we're upset, we will be ineffective and in fact we could actually do harm. So the next step will be connecting with him using emotion coaching. You might be able to use that to explore what happened and why it happened and give the chance for the child to get their feelings out before you move on to making amends. So the next step will be problem solving, which will include making amends, and we find a process that is very helpful is what we call the mistakes process. Of course, all human beings make mistakes. It's how we deal with them that defines our character.
So let's carry on. In this picture, we can see that one little girl does not seem to care that the other one is crying. I'm sorry, G. Let me see what you sent in the chat. Since I started positive discipline, many situations came and demanded my action. It's really challenging the process of discovery of positive interventions. Yeah, it's a transition actually, because when we see the challenging behavior as teachers, you already teach, Talita already teaches. So we have our own background of responses. And it's very natural to us to carry on with the natural responses we have and just do what we've already done several times, and it probably worked. But when we consider all those elements, when we consider the lifelong development, the inner motivation, the self regulation, then we have to think through and choose the right strategies. And some of the right strategies might be the ones that you already have when you're teaching background, but some others will have to be changed. And that's a hard transition, but that's a transition I'll be with you. And even if the course ends, you can still keep in touch. Okay? So, coming back to the picture, we see that one little girl does not seem to care that the other one is crying about, we don't know. She could be crying because her block tower was destroyed. She could be crying because she wants the color that the other girl is getting. And now we are going to do a visible thinking routine as we did the other day, called Step Inside. Okay, this is how this activity will work. We will perceive, know about, to care about. So when we look at the picture, okay, this is our perception. This is my perception. I think one is not caring about the other, and one is playing like super fine. And I don't know if this one on the right did something to the one on the left. This is not something I can perceive by looking at the picture. And what do you perceive? What do you see in this picture? What is your interpretation? If you walk in a classroom and that's what you see inside, what would you assume? What would you think? Yeah, so it could be a flexibility issue. All right. Now we did the perceive, know about, okay? And what do you know? You are the teacher, okay? So what do you know as a teacher about those blocks and about the project they are building? As a teacher, what do you know about what they are doing and why and how important it is? What do you know? Could you tell me? See a conflict happening, go back a few steps and try to remember the purpose of that moment. Okay, this is very important. So, are we in the playground? What is the purpose of being in the playground? Okay, are we having a math lesson about shapes? And I gave you 3D shapes as blocks. And what is the purpose of what we are doing? Okay, so this is what we know as teacher. But what do you think the girls know? Now, not looking from a teacher's perspective, looking from a child's perspective. When they received this big box of nice blocks from Miss Simon, and what do you think they thought? What is their perspective, in your opinion?
I think if you don't tell them what to expect, then probably she's gonna think that's all for her, or that she can do whatever she wants, I guess.
Yeah, so in this conflict, we are going to play, or we are going to play. It's playtime. So here in this conflict, we can see the power of anticipation to avoid classroom conflicts. When you anticipate what the purpose is, and you do not only make sure that you as a teacher know it, but you make sure that your kids know what the purpose is, and you anticipate what's going to happen. And that's here the care about. That's what we call caring about our students. We care about the fact that they really understood something or that they didn't understand anything. Okay? So, as we started last week, we are seeing some positive discipline tools for each of the five social and emotional competencies. Those five competencies are the international definition for social and emotional learning. There are those three areas of development, and we are seeing some tools for each of them. So, among those tools, you will find the most suitable one for your teaching context, okay, to share next week. I brought here a positive discipline activity that fosters relationship skills. And it's called the, oopsie, this slide is in the wrong space. I'm going to delete it later. It's called the plastic bottle activity, okay? And for this activity, all you need to do is a plastic bottle, an empty one. You know, you have to go through this sacrifice of drinking a whole bottle of Guaraná or Coke, and you take it to your classroom, and you are going to show your students this plastic bottle, and you are going to give them a challenge. And you can make it super fun. You can use a timer or a song. They need to get a paper, and they can jot down every possible use they can think of for a plastic bottle. If they do not know how to write, they can draw. Okay? And next, you're going to divide them in four small groups. And each child is going to get the paper that they wrote ideas at, and they are going to be divided in groups of four. And in these groups of four, you are going to write on your board that you need four roles, four different responsibilities in the group. Children obviously needs to decide who's going to take each responsibility. Okay, it's not up to the teacher to say that. It's important that they make this decision. They need one time management, one time manager, one writer, one moderator, and one spokesperson. Okay, you can write on the board, you can make a drawing that each four members of the group will need to get one of those responsibilities. Then, inside their small group, they are going to look at all the post-its, all the papers they brought from step one. So they are individual ideas about the possible uses for a plastic bottle. They're going to put them on the table, and they are going to analyze those notes as a group. And that's why it's important to have a time manager because you will have set a time for your group to work. And it's also important to have a writer, a moderator that will work through the discussion. In step two, where when you were talking about the roles, you can role play, you can show them how the roles work, exemplify so they really understand what you do when they are in a group. Then, step four, the writer, you are going to show them the steps before you send them off to independent work. The writer will take notes about the whole discussion and how they ended up in three main ideas. Only three main ideas about the possible uses of a plastic bottle. Okay? And then five times up. The spokesperson of each group is going to share with the whole class the ideas that were discussed. By this time in this activity, your children are pretty sure that your next project is something about nature, ecology, recycling. Why is the teacher talking about this plastic bottle? But actually, it's about social and emotional learning. Because after they shared their activities, after in step five, they shared their group, their ideas with the whole group. You are going to conduct a teacher mediated reflection based mainly on two questions. What have you learned in this activity that can be useful to us as a group? And based on what we learned, how can we better work or operate as a group? I really like this activity because sometimes when we are doing projects with children or research or even asking them to draw or paint together, it's a very common complaint among teachers that they do not know how to work as a group. They do not listen to each other. They do not know how to be in a group or how to be independent in a group. But it is a common complaint and it's not being addressed. And so, this skill of independently working without an academic purpose, but with the purpose of acquiring relationship skills, is not common. It's not present in classrooms. So, when you are complaining that they do not have the skill, but then the skill wasn't nurtured during the school years, it's really complicated to complain because they are developing. They're at school, they are learning, and we shouldn't assume they know anything. And social and emotional learning is everything but an assumption. You shouldn't assume everything. Anything. You shouldn't assume anything. You should always nurture and foster as it if or it were a really tiny seed inside your student's brain. Okay, so this whole activity is about dialogue, is about acquiring responsibility, is about sustaining the same role. Sorry, it's about sustaining the same role and sustaining the same responsibility from the beginning to the end of a task. So it's not a content focused activity, but it is focused on the relationship skill itself. Okay, and you can do that with any object you want. I've done it with a paper clip. I've done it with a soccer ball. I've done it with a plastic bottle. You can get any object you want and do it with your group. And it's going to be a very rich moment because further on, for example, when you have a science project and you have to, they need to create a 3D model, for example, they can use the skills acquired in this activity for working as a group in the science class. So the ability of dividing responsibility, the ability of having someone to manage time, someone to be the moderator when the ideas are different and people start to arguing. There's someone who's in charge of moderate discussions. And it's really interesting that they have this activity here before being required to do anything academically in that matter. Any questions about this positive discipline tool, girls?
Just one question. If I don't have exactly four kids, if I have like more or less, which one can I take out or double?
Yeah, you could double the moderators because you always need moderators. And also the writer. I would double the writer. And if you need to take one out, I would take out the time manager. And you could have a sand clock or a song, something else that could show them the time. Okay?
How much time do you usually give them?
For, so when they start the steps three, four, and five, they are in
Yeah.
independent work as a group. 10 minutes, eight, maybe
Okay.
8 to 10 minutes. And then for step six, which is the whole big discussion, 5 to 6 minutes. It's something quick, all right, but really useful. Another positive discipline tool that I brought for you today concerns responsible decision making. Okay, the name of this activity is the wheel of choice. Okay, the goal is to talk about challenging moments and solutions for them. To talk about the challenging moments, not when the challenging moment is happening, but out of that fire zone. Shared responsibility that generates collective well being. All you need is an empty wheel image. I'm going to show you. You can either print or send it online and or use it, share your screen online. And if you are teaching remotely, after class, you can post an asynchronous assignment in which pupils have to leave comments about how they plan to use the wheel choice in the future. And it's important to use the wheel consistently on your routine. But what is this wheel, Bia? Let me show you. Okay, over here. So let's say that in your group, you have something that is a very, very frequent problem. Could you give me one example? Let me pick you. Any example, anything that often happens in your group and it's a big deal.
Anything they find, they find in the floor.
Getting things from the floor and eating. Okay, so you would put this problem in the center of the wheel of choice. Okay, and you wouldn't put the problem but the situation. Like you would write or draw here. I found something nice on the floor. Okay, and we would do this as part of your routine circle time. So, not when someone is eating something that they get from the floor, because that's an individual talk you will have with that child specifically. But during circle time, you would get this wheel and write here in the middle. I found something really nice on the floor. And then you would fill in the wheel with choices, with things you can do when you find something interesting on the floor. You can do it online as well in this using this website, Pick Your Wheel. And it's really important that when they add ideas of things you can do when you find something interesting on the floor, they respect the 3 R's and the 1 U that we talked about last class. So, ideas that are added to the wheel of choice, they can only be over here if they are related to the problem, reasonable, respectful, and useful. So, let's say that I said, okay, kids, so when I see something really nice on the floor, what is a choice I can make? And someone said, you can eat. Oh, is it reasonable to eat something that was on the floor? No, yes, and then you let them share. So they ended up seeing it's not reasonable. So, guys, if it's not a reasonable option, we cannot put in the wheel of choice. We need other choices. I can show it to a friend. All right, that's related to the problem. That's reasonable. That's respectful. It's really useful to show it to a friend. So you can draw and write over here as a teacher. Show to a friend. I can show to the teacher and ask if it's edible or not. That's another choice you can make. You didn't eat, you didn't put it in your mouth immediately. You took to the teacher. All right. Ah, I can start playing with it. I can play with it. Okay. And then you fill in with choices concerning that problem that frequently happens in your classroom. And then you use that, let's say you did it in a circle time on Monday, then during the week, every day you can review, every day you can check this wheel of choice again until the solutions for this problem are consolidated and are part of your children's repertoire of strategies, of responses. And then, as naturally, other problems will come up. And next month, you will need a new wheel of choice for a new challenge that will come up. Did you understand?
Yes, that would be wonderful for week routines. And I see it at the way you said, be like we would take the ideas of Monday, and then that would last for the rest of the week. And then in the next week, we change it and it's expose it, and everyone can see it. So it's a great idea. I've never seen this.
Yes, the wheel of choice is a positive discipline tool, and it's really important that it's not nothing on it is prepared by the teacher. Actually, the only thing that can be prepared is this the middle of the wheel. You can rephrase or you can come up with a sentence or a drawing that represents what's going on. Okay, but all the choices they are children's idea. They are guided by you. You can use this vocabulary here, the three R's and the one U: related, reasonable, respectful, and useful. You can use this vocabulary. You can have a little poster. I used to have 4 stars on a stick, and I said that I could only put strategies that had the 4 stars. So I would raise 1 star if it was related, if it was reasonable, if it was respectful and useful. Okay, so I raised it the 4 stars. That's a really nice strategy, guys. Let's put it on the wheel of choice. So you make it fun, you make it visual, and most importantly, it's their contribution. Okay? A self management strategy I brought for you today is the positive pause. Okay? So traditionally, some teachers use cantinho da disciplina, other teachers send children to timeout with the coordinator, with the head of school, and the positive discipline approach will suggest that we work on positive pauses, that we help the student understand when they are feeling something that will lead to a disruptive behavior and they regulate the moment to pause. Okay, the idea of the positive pause is not just for the child to be sent to timeout or sent to the head of school, but for the child to feel that, wow, my feelings are getting way ahead of me. I need to hold my horses. I need a pause to develop this inner perception because this is a lifelong skill. Being sent to the head of school is not a lifelong skill. It does not produce any learning, it produces frustration and fear. And positive discipline looks for self regulation. So, this is a story, and we often use to illustrate the positive pause. It's from a book, Jared's Cool Out Space. This book was written by Dr. Jay Nelson, the author of the positive discipline approach. Okay, and I brought here a video of me reading the story for my students. So don't mind the silly voices and the silly talk because I'm talking to 6 year olds in the video. But as for copyright, I cannot show you the book and sharing Google Classroom, I brought a video, I read aloud, and the video is in Google Classroom. I just kindly ask you not to use it to share because of the copyright. Okay, but it's just for you to understand the story, and maybe you can purchase the book. It's a very interesting resource to teach children about this self regulation. Okay, so now just pretend you are 6 year olds, and I hope you enjoy the story. Okay, so this is how this activity works, and again, it is a, a tool to foster self management skills. Okay, girls. Now, for social awareness, what I brought for you is how positive discipline creates opportunities to solve problems and create solutions. So, our main tool with the children, our most frequent talk, will be the 3 R's and 1 U. Okay, and again, you can make stars. If your students are super, super young, you can make puppies. You can make puppets. And if your students are older, you can make a chart like a checklist. But it's really important for them to understand that when you create a solution, the solution needs to be related to the problem, reasonable, respectful, and useful. I brought here, it's in Portuguese, and but I brought here a work of a group of psychologists. They did a science research, a scientific research about the positive discipline approach. And they analyzed the same problem into different schools. Okay? So the big problem was that children were frequently late after recess. And they analyzed how a group of kids in a traditional setting would solve this problem and how a group of kids in a positive discipline classroom would solve this problem of some members of the group being frequently late after recess. Okay? So this is the first list of solutions. The first group, the children in a traditional setting. Some solutions they thought would be suitable for this problem was to write their names on the board, to make them stay at school for as long as they were late, and to get the time they were late today from tomorrow's recess, to make the whole to lose the whole recess tomorrow, and even yell at them. Okay, you can see that those solutions are things that we might have already seen or that we might as well might have already done. We're not here to judge our past, but to look for a brighter future and a more a future where in which we are more aware of the social and emotional development. So we can see that none of those solutions are related to the problem. They are not reasonable. Some of them are not reasonable, such as losing the whole recess the other day. Some are not respectful, like yell at them, and some are not useful, like write the name on the board. Okay, it's not useful. And when I mean useful, I mean to build on lifelong social and emotional skills. That's the list of the second school, the kids who were used to the positive discipline approach. Those were their solutions. Everyone screamed together. Nah, recess is over. When it's over, though the whole class supporting one another. Children could play closer to the bell ring, so they listened to it. Children could observe more, could be more attentive of what the others are doing. So they see when some friends are going back to the classroom. We could have a louder bell ring. They could choose one person in class to be responsible for reminding each other, and they could just you give it, a pat on the back of that Mr. or Miss Late, and say, "Yo, almost over," and kindly remind that friend and try to avoid that he or she is late for class. Can you see how different the two lists are? They are totally different. And the second list fosters this lifelong skill of cooperation, the lifelong skill of respect, and the lifelong skill of problem solving. Okay? Any questions about those two activities, girls? About the book, about the problem solving structure? No, no questions? Okay. And this next tool concerns the development of self awareness. Okay? It's how we make amends according to the positive discipline approach. We cannot lie. It is something that we do, it is something that's often necessary. Children fight, they say things they do not mean, then they hurt each other's feelings, and it's our responsibility as teachers to guide them on making amends. When we guide them into making amends, it's very important to consider that mistakes are wonderful opportunities to learn. And we should say that at the moment of the mistake. So let's say Maria said something that hurt Joanna's feelings. It's important to tell Maria that yes, she made a mistake, but mistakes are wonderful opportunities to learn. And when we say that, there are two options. We can treat our student by saying, "You are the mistake. So you are Maria, the one who always says things that upsets other people." Or we can treat Maria like a learner. "You've been making a mistake several times, and I'm going to help you learn from that mistake. I'm going to help you get over that mistake." Okay? So there are four steps according to the positive discipline approach that we take when we are making amends. Okay? The first one, so let's say Maria and Joanna. Maria said something that hurt her friend's feelings. The first and most important thing, first, the teacher needs to be balanced and embrace both. Calm down, no excuses. Let's have a honest talk. Honest talk. Because Maria will say, but I said this and that because the other day Joanna told me this and that. And then Joanna will say, but that other day that I told you this and that, it's because you were with such and such. And that goes on a loop that will never end. That's why it's important to tell children we are here to look at each other, we are here to breathe, we are here to report what happened, not to share excuses. So, Maria, tell me what you said. Miss, I said that Joanna's drawing is horrible. Okay, thank you for being honest. Joanna, tell me how you felt when she told you your drawing was horrible. I started to cry because I put much effort on my drawing. This is the first step, to embrace without excuses and to have a quick but very honest talk, a honest report. Even though if you as a teacher saw what happened, the mistake, you saw what happened, it's important that the children report from their perspective. Next, we repair. Okay, how can we make each other feel better? Not feel worse, not by saying, you should say sorry, you should apologize, you say this, you say that. No, teacher won't tell them what to say. You will ask, Maria, how can you make Joanna feel better? Or Joanna, what would make you feel better right now? After they shared, revise. You can write, you can discuss common mistakes with a group as a group, in a circle time. Last class we learned about the class meetings. You could take this issue to the class meetings and talk to everyone. And most importantly, when you make amends, it's really, really important to share the responsibility. Okay, that it's also their responsibility to take care of one another. And when the conflict is over, during a circle time, maybe you can role play. One person is the offended one, the other uses the steps, those 4 steps to try to solve. One can be the teacher, can like role play, and this whole cycle of making amends until they have it consolidated in their minds. Okay? Any questions about this? Those 4 steps? No questions? Okay, then what? So that conflict will happen again. Children say things, situations happen, we are in the school, or even though if this group has learned the whole lesson, next January you're gonna have a whole group of kids, a new group of kids. Then what? It's really interesting that you have visual aids, that you register all the progress, that you record the progress, and that you have practical and respectful solutions, repair focused solutions, and most importantly, without excuses, but looking towards repairment. Okay? About the social awareness skill, I brought for you this activity called Charlie. It's another positive discipline activity. The goal is to understand and visualize how words affect another person's feelings. Everything you need is one white paper for each student, pencils to draw. If you're teaching remote, you just ask them to bring those materials to your live lesson. Okay? And you're gonna ask each of your kids to draw a very beautiful human figure. Okay? And based on this human figure, you're going to name it. Okay? So let's say this is Charlie. And we can tell a little story that relates to things that have been happening in our classroom. Okay? And I had a problem with a group of kids about a child that was new in school. So I would say to my group, this is Charlie. She's new at our school, but if you have a problem about race, if you have a problem about gender, if you have a problem about a disability, you can create another story for your Charlie accordingly, okay? So for my group, my last group, I would say that this is Charlie. She's new at our school. And let's make it as personal as possible when we tell the story. Okay? And now, kids, sitting here in a circle holding Charlie, each one of you is going to tell me something that really, really hurts someone when they are new in a new school. Something that you've already heard, or something that you've seen someone saying to another person that really, really hurts. And as they say it, you are going across a circle, so each child will have the opportunity to say something. They will wrinkle the paper a little bit until the paper is a paper ball. And I say, guys, we can hardly see Charlie now. She's all wrinkled and we cannot see her. And I believe she's really, really upset. Let's try to repair it. Let's say some good things. So, what are some positive things we can say to someone who is new at school? And then, as each of them say a positive thing, all children open up their drawings, their Charlies, a little bit until the paper is back. And when they see the drawing, you are going to help them observe all the lines on the drawing and understand that those lines are the effect the words that we say cause on people. And it's important for them to visualize in this activity that regardless of the amount of strategies we do to repair and to make amends and to try again and learn, we leave marks on other people. Everything that we do or say will leave a mark on another person. And we cannot control this mark. We cannot control how big something that we say will be for that person. We cannot control how upset that person will be after something we say. So it's a very interesting activity for self awareness, for them to understand the impact of their own actions on others. Okay, this is another positive discipline activity. Any questions about it? No? No? Um, I have here now a TED Talk that I brought for you, and it's a really interesting one about social and emotional learning. We are going to watch it and then share some ideas, some insights, okay?
Good morning. Isn't this great? I'm having so much fun already. Recently, a good friend of mine told me about his 89-year-old father's wish for his grandchildren. My friend asked his dad, "What do you want for your grandkids?" You might think his response was good health, a great education, a successful career, maybe even riches. But no, his response was, "I want them to be able to get back up when they fall." Able to get back up when they fall. Isn't that what we want for all our children? The strength of character, the skills for resilience, a warm toughness. Sadly, many of today's children lack fortitude. Some are so insecure they bully their peers. And still many seem paralyzed by their fear and consequently stand by, indifferent to wrongdoing. Why is that? I have taught students and educators for over 14 years. And in these classrooms, children were provided with the usual academic nourishment, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But there was something missing. Students weren't taught the skills to be empathetic or caring. They weren't taught to manage their emotions. They don't possess the conscientiousness to connect with other people. Each time you turn on the TV or glance at comments left on internet postings, it is horrifically obvious that we have a generation of people feeling disconnected and angry. Some so disconnected and so angry they turn to violence. Violence against their community and often themselves. 77% of our nation's young people in grades 6 through 10 reported experiencing verbal abuse from a peer last year alone. 80% reported experiencing abuse through social media